Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. It's race week yet again. The Mexico City Grand Prix is coming up this weekend, but that does not mean that teams have quickly moved on from this incident between Lando and Max in yesterday's US Grand Prix. McLaren, Mercedes even, and certainly Red Bull wading into discussion again over the last several hours. Lots of drama over this move, especially in terms of, do the stewards need to change their decision-making processes to actually come up with a better solution going forwards? Max weighed in on the discussion as well. Ferrari, though, find themselves in a realistic position to challenge for this year's Constructors' Championship, especially if these two keep on battling it out and if these two keep taking each other out of races, as potentially could have happened back in Austria. Maybe even Charles Leclerc could win this year's World Drivers' Championship. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. So let's just dive straight back into this, right? Because there were some further updates on this last night that we've got to talk about. Of course, this is the instant on lap 56, whatever it was, 3 laps or so from the end of the race, when Lando overtakes Max off the track and was given a 5-second penalty for doing so. The big debate about this was, I would say, the fact that Max went off the track. If Max had kept in track limits, Lando penalty clear as day, in my opinion. But the fact that he went outside of track limits, that is where the drama is kicked off. Now, people were comparing this, and understandably, it's not exactly the same incident, but this was Las Vegas 2023, if you guys remember last year's Grand Prix, when Leclerc was on pole. Verstappen, in Verstappen fashion, sends it down the inside. There was no grip, and obviously Max and Leclerc both end up off the road. Max takes the lead and holds on to it, and then is given a 5-second penalty for doing so, which seems, fair enough to me. You force the other driver off the track, you get a penalty. Now, I think today that would be a 10-second penalty based on the way that they've changed the rules, but yesterday, again, they were giving out 5-second penalties and giving strange mitigating circumstances to why they were 5 and not 10, so it's all rather confusing. But this was a 5-second pen last year for Max for, forcing another driver off the track and going outside of track limits himself. And he's done this before, and this is the debate on Max, really. It's like, are the stewards biased in Max's favour, which sometimes it looks like, or is it more likely, which is my opinion, I think, that Max just knows the rules to a T, he knows what he can get away with, and the rules are just badly written. And this is what the drivers themselves were saying, right? Max said, I think it's quite clear that you cannot overtake outside of the white line. He got done for this before as well, an overtake on Raikkonen. If you overtake outside of the white line, you're not allowed to do so. And the current rules massively favour the defending car. If you're defending and someone's trying to overtake you on the inside, then just, allow yourself to be pushed off the track, and the other guy's going to get a 5-second penalty for doing so. If you're obviously the attacking car and you try and go around the outside, then the defender's just going to push you off the track, and that's perfectly fine based on the current rules, even if that driver who's defending goes off the track himself. And that is, the key drama about this to me, right? So just to go back quickly, this is Austria this year, where Lando sent it down the inside. This is the apex, and we're going to talk about who was ahead at the apex. And it's such a stupid way to determine who should have the right to the corner, but effectively that is still how these decisions are being made. But in Austria, Lando sends it down the inside of Max. He is ahead at the apex, and or at the very least alongside, but I would say at the apex point he's effectively ahead going into this corner. And then Max is forced, of course, out wide off the track, but Lando keeps it within track limits. So this looks like, oh, well, maybe it's a fair overtake, but no, Max comes back on the track, he maintains his lead and position, and Max was not forced to give this position back, and he did not receive a penalty. The reason why is because Lando's coming up the inside, and therefore Max is the defending car, so effectively Lando pushed Max off the track here, and therefore Max didn't have to do anything. Now, if the roles were reversed, then the situation is, for some reason, very different indeed. And Andy Deverton explains this, why the stewards made the decision that they did, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail here in a second, mainly because Lando is not ahead at the apex, Max Verstappen was ahead at the apex, and you guys can see it here. This was the Russell versus Bottas instance. Russell sent it down the inside, pushed Bottas off the track, took the position. That was a 5-second penalty. In the above case, it's Max who's on the inside, but he's the one defending. Now, of course, you look at this position. Here's the apex, and Max is at least, alongside, if not ahead, at the apex. The problem with that whole decision is that Max doesn't make the corner. So he's only ahead at the apex, because he outbraked himself. That is the number one stupid thing about this rule, is that, oh, well, he was ahead of the apex and therefore the attacking driver didn't have the right to the corner, but hang on a second, he was only ahead at the apex because he didn't make the corner himself and he outbraked himself. Like, I can be ahead at the apex if I just send it through the corner and don't even attempt to make the corner. But apparently that's still how we're determining things here in the year 2024 in Formula 1, and you can see that by the way the stewards describe it. So this is the document they come out with, and on one hand, I want to say, okay, the stewards are only doing what the rules tell them to do. And I kind of want to believe that, but I genuinely struggle to, because the rulings are so inconsistent. And I'll share an example of that in a second. So this was on the Lando thing. Car 4 left the track and returned in front of Car 1. Now, because Car 1 was ahead at the apex, as they describe, under the driving standards guidelines, Car 4 has lost the right to the corner. So, and therefore, he can't overtake off track. There's nothing you can do about it. But you know, the ruling here is that Anthony Davidson describes that Max is ahead at the apex. He then goes off the track, and this is considered to be, oh, well, I guess he just broke track limits. It's a track limits violation. It's like, what are we talking about here? Like, that's what this is described as for Max. It's not forcing another driver off track. It's just, oh, well, you know, it's like Lando doesn't exist and Max just happened to make a mistake and go deep into the corner and, oh, well, guess it's a track limits violation. Like, what are you talking about? Obviously, there was another driver there that Max was trying to usher off the road, and in doing so, he went off the track himself. So, you know, according to the rules, it's like, well, Lando wasn't alongside and therefore he has no right to the corner. It's like, how does that work? How does it work that if the defending driver outbrakes himself and therefore was ahead at the apex, the guy trying to overtake just has no right to any space? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And then they say it wasn't a 10-second, it was only a 5-second penalty for Norris because he had no alternative. So, you know, maybe you want to take the view of the stewards are just doing the best of their job, they're just following the rules. Okay, well, explain this one to me. So this is Yuki Tsunoda on Alex Albon. I didn't actually see this incident. I'm not sure if it was in the race coverage, but it was again at turn 12, and Tsunoda overtakes Albon and pushes him off the track, just like Russell did, right? So he forced Albon off the track at turn 12. He got a 5-second penalty for doing so, and they said the following: they did not give any space, that is Yuki, to car 23. However, in mitigation, a 5-second penalty is imposed instead of the standard 10 seconds because the stewards determine that the forcing off track was not deliberate and that the driver of car number 22 was in control of the car at all times. So, hang on a second. Let's just read through that again. The forcing off track of Albon by Tsunoda was not deliberate, they say, and the driver of the car, Tsunoda, was in control of the car at all times. So just for 1 second, try and explain to me how those two things can possibly be true at the same time. If Yuki did not force him off track deliberately, then how could he have been in control of the car at all times? If Yuki was in control of the car at all times, then if he forced another driver off the track while being fully in control of the car at all times, he surely did so deliberately. There is no other way of explaining that, in my opinion. But the stewards say, no, he was in control, but it wasn't deliberate that he forced the other driver off the track, so only a 5-second, not a 10 seconds. It's like, how can you tell me that these rulings aren't inconsistent? You just can't. It's just not possible. Like, the stewards, I just don't know what's going on in that stewards room. And even McLaren at the end of the race were like, look, could they not have just waited? Like, just think about it for 30 minutes rather than making the decision on a whim, which is effectively what they did. So it is incredible. And there was also this that was noted, right, where in the rules it says the car being overtaken must be capable of making the corner while remaining within the limits of the track, which is my point, that if Lando then tucked back inside behind Max, then Max would be surely liable to some sort of penalty. But maybe that's not the way the stewards look at things. And Lando says the rules are the rules. It seems that they're changing. I feel that is inconsistent after what happened in Austria. There, Max did not get a penalty and he did gain an advantage by going off the track, which I think is fair. I mean, like, according to what we've just read, it would make sense that Lando going down the inside, taking the apex of the corner, should be allowed the corner. But it's different because he was the attacking driver, and, in this case, it's Max defending on the inside, so apparently that's different, which is probably not fair, in my opinion. But, look, the rules are the rules. It's just, they're inconsistent as is, and the stewards apply them inconsistently. And this is big for the championship fight, right? This is not a small deal. I know that many will now look at the championship and the performances of the cars in Austin and say, oh, well, you know, Red Bull are going to win anyway, and Max is going to win anyway. And that seems true. But McLaren said this weekend was going to be their worst weekend. They were predicting Austin to be their worst track because lots of heavy braking into slow speed, lots of very fast high-speed corners, not McLaren's real strong suit. They're a very all-round car, and when it's quite extremes like this, especially Austin, they're not so good. So McLaren basically said, this is going to be our worst track, and every other track from here on out is going to be better. That's what McLaren think is going to happen, and if that's true, then Lando might be back to beating Max every weekend, which means that these few points, the swing of this decision, could be critical when it comes to the end of the season. So as Toto says, there are a few inconsistencies. I'm sure that President Ben Sulayem's going to look at them. I'm sure that he isn't, but yeah, I guess we'll see. And Horner then says, well, if Norris had given the place back, he probably would have had enough pace to make the pass again. The thing you got to understand is, and I know that Horner knows this, overtaking Max is just not possible. Like, it is possible, but it's so challenging that if you do overtake him, you've got a part of you's got to think, well, is it just worth holding on? I hope we don't get the penalty and maybe we build up a 5-second gap in time, which they didn't quite. But look, if Lando yielded and tried again, would he have got him? I mean, I think the same story would have continued. Max would have kept doing the same thing lap after lap after lap, and it would have been fine, apparently. We got some further drama and reaction to this too. So as Damon Hill says, I'm not convinced the stewarding was consistent in that race, but Lando went deep to pass and did so off the track. That said, Max did not give him room on the exit and barged him off the track in lap 1, turn 1. The rules need to be better, he says, of course, understanding that lap 1, turn 1 is different. And actually, I did have another screenshot to share. This was from lap 1, turn 1 yesterday, and I think in the video yesterday, I had a screenshot where Max was still on the track, but actually it does seem like, at least here, that Max did go all 4 wheels off the track. Now, it's still lap 1, turn 1. You know, it is what it is sometimes. Certainly at COTA, there's always something like this happening. But still, again, turn 1, Max fully forced Lando off the track and fully left the track himself. So, you know, is this not exactly what's happened in Las Vegas when Max got a 5-second penalty for the incident on Leclerc in Las Vegas? Like, imagine the Ferraris don't exist, then surely it's a clear 5-second penalty. But apparently because the Ferraris do exist and there was more racing and it's COTA or something, then this is not a penalty. It's like, again, you can't tell me it's consistent. Max is, I think, pretty clearly on this image, all 4 wheels over the white line, but yet no penalty for Max then, but there was in Vegas last year. So why exactly? I don't know the answers to these questions, but Zach Brown was like, Damon, I'm convinced that it's not. And Damon Hill then replies and says, look, you're biased. You're necessarily going to be biased, but you know, it's pretty funny regardless. Not funny for Lando's title hopes, of course, and I did think it was maybe a slight bit telling from Zach Brown, because we know that they've been entertaining the idea of Lando winning the Drivers' Championship. Zach then says yesterday, P4, P5. Disappointed to miss out on the podium, of course. Their first missed podium, I think, since Japan. Kind of remarkable. 5 Grand Prix, 2 sprints to go in a 3-way fight for the championship. But, you know, the way that he says this kind of implies there is only one championship to be fought for, right? Whereas there are technically another one in the drivers as well, but there is a 3-way fight for sure for the constructors. Now, Max was asked for his comments on that whole situation and was asked, do you have any sympathy? And Max says, no sympathy at all. They complain about a lot lately anyway. It's pretty funny that Max is basically saying that they're crying. They were constantly crying about our front bib T-trade drama before the weekends. And then Max, of course, says, yeah, they were just complaining about that, so they deserve this effectively. I got done for it in the past as well, overtaken outside of the white line. And, you know, says I enjoyed the battle and everything, and reckons that he's not going to make it easy for Lando, certainly at this point in the season. Of course, Toto, we saw his quotes yesterday, went on to say that he feels like the stewarding is biased and maybe in a certain way. That was certainly the implication between the lines on that one. And, you know, these are the comments from the 2 drivers. The drama's not going away. I'm sure that it's going to be a talking point going into next weekend as well. But what about the championship? Because this is now the drivers. It's a 57-point gap for Max at the top. That's going to be very challenging to overturn. Charles Leclerc is technically in the hunt. It's just he is quite a way away. Leclerc needs effectively to win every race, and he needs Verstappen and Norris to not do so well. It is possible if, hypothetically, Lando and Max have a couple of DNFs each. I think that's the way that it has to happen for Leclerc. Leclerc has to just win out, which is not impossible necessarily, but Leclerc's just got to win every Grand Prix effectively, and he has to hope that on a couple of occasions, Max and Lando come together and take each other out of the race or put themselves down the order so they don't score many points. I think that might be what needs to happen for Leclerc, and this is technically what it is. Leclerc must win all the races, Max must finish 5th or lower in all remaining races. So that's just like on average, right? So the point being that, well, what is 5th? So 18, 15, so 10 points. So Max needs to get less than, 50 points basically from now to the end of the season, not including the sprints. And if Leclerc then wins everything and scores 125 points, then the overtake is possible. So, it's like 5th or lower isn't necessarily guaranteed. Max can win a couple of races, and if he DNFs in all the other ones, then Leclerc can still win. That's the point. The same kind of thing applies for Lando Norris as well, but probably the more interesting battle for the championship is in the constructors, because here come Ferrari, baby. They brought no upgrades this weekend and they delivered a masterclass. You gotta say for Ferrari, it is commendable, right, that they decided to do this, because every other team brought upgrades. And it may prove to be a good decision in the longer term for Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes to bring them now, but we know that on a sprint weekend it's a challenge, right? You get 1 hour of practice. Ferrari had a new floor update ready to go for Austin that they brought back several rounds to Monza, and it worked perfectly in Austin in addition to their new Singapore front wing. So Ferrari really nailed it, and look, maybe McLaren and Red Bull can optimize further over the next couple of rounds, but Ferrari are not far behind Red Bull at all, and they are only 48 points behind McLaren for winning this year's Constructors' Championship. Of course, Perez is having an absolute stinker. Again, had a pretty shocking race yesterday. Well, it just was straight up shocking, actually, because somehow Russell started from the pit lane, got a 5-second penalty, and still overtook him at the end of the Grand Prix. I think even Liam Lawson was only about 10 or so seconds behind Perez at the end of the race, despite starting on P19. I know that Perez had not the full upgrade package that Verstappen had, but it's still not exactly ideal, right? And even Christian Horner has kind of doubled down. We saw his comments the other day kind of saying to Perez, look, he's got to step up. We need 2 drivers next season. And Horner then says, yeah, you can see the Ferraris, the McLarens, they're hunting in pairs. And that is not the case right now with Red Bull. Where was Max's help? Well, it was back in P8 effectively for the vast majority of the Grand Prix. So very much interested to your thoughts in the comment section below. Lots to say as ever on the coming days as well. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.